You're listening to Parasearch Radio, news, views and reviews from the world of the paranormal from across the UK and beyond. Find us on Facebook, Twitter and the World Wide Web. Parasearch UK Radio. Parasearch Radio, broadcasting to the UK and beyond.
The views and opinions expressed by presenters and guests are their own and do not necessarily reflect the official policy or position of Parasearch Radio or its affiliates and sponsors. Listener discretion is advised. Welcome to Haunted Histories with your host Penny G. Morgan, right here on Parasearch Radio.
Hello everybody, how are we all? It's the 13th of February, tomorrow is Valentine's Day, and had I thought about it I should really have done a show about, I don't know, the St. Valentine's Day massacre or something like that, but you know, I'm not that intelligent, I didn't think of that, so I didn't do it. Good evening Kerry, how are you? I hope you're well. Yes, it's Valentine's Day tomorrow. I might be married, but I'm not one of those people who feels the need to go out and spend inordinate amounts of money on a dinner. I'd rather go out in a couple of weeks when it's cheaper and buy the half-price chocolates then. I'm such a skinflint. But anyway, what's everyone been up to? How are you? Where have you been investigating? What have you been doing? Tell me everything. Well, I've got a bit of news for you. Who's bought a copy of the new Haunted magazine? Huh? Yep, that's me. I'm Penny Griffiths Morgan, the writer who did the one on the Ghost Cavalry. If you've read it, let me know what you thought. If you haven't, go and get a copy. I'm quite proud of that article. My inaugural magazine article. Never written one for a magazine before. It's a first. See, us Parasearch pods are getting everywhere because it's not just me in that issue of Haunted magazine. Our gorgeous Joe Lockwood's being interviewed in there as well. So you wait for one Parasearch presenter to be featured and two come along all at once. Maybe we'll make it a full house at some point, Kerry. What do you reckon? What do you reckon, boss? Get all of us in there. Get us all featured on something. Who knows? We'll take over the world. Take over the world. Well, talking about the world, tonight's show is Down Under. That's not too bad, is it? Down Under. So it sounds a bit Crocodile Dundee-ish, but hey-ho. We're going to be talking to someone who I love and adore. Have a listen.
Let's see.
Okay, so, and I will admit this is a pre-record because the lovely gentleman I'm talking to is an 11-hour time difference, and he's staying up late to record this interview for us, and of which I'm incredibly grateful. It's my awesome Australian brother, who I love with all my heart. It's Mr. Bill Tabone. Hello.
Hey, how are you?
I'm good, thank you. This is our first chat of 2019.
It certainly is, and what a year it's going to turn out to be, I think.
I think so. I mean, I'm sure you've seen. I was in the newspapers at the beginning of the year. I've now.
Oh, for sure.
Yeah, I'm now a features writer for Haunted magazine.
I heard that too. That's awesome. That's awesome. They got a gem when they got you, Duff.
Oh, thank you, my love. Thank you.
There you go.
Hopefully my book will be out at some point that I've written that's with my editor being edited at some point. That will be out. And yeah, but you've not been sitting on your laurels, have you?
No, we've got a lot of things going on at the moment. We have tours and a lot of we're getting back into our Worlds Beyond TV YouTube channel, which is good. Doing a bunch of interviews with different people, and a whole range of other things. Writing for different, actually writing a few bits and pieces for different books along the way for different people, such as our friend Mr. Richard Eastep. And,
our good friend. That boy gets everywhere, I tell you.
He's a good guy. He's a good guy. A bunch of other things. We're doing a lot of experimentation this year. So trying, taking some existing experiments, creating some new ones, and just seeing where we can push the boundaries and go from there. So expanding the research.
I'd love to hear about some of them later, because I've started looking into the whole experiment side, because it's not one that I was particularly familiar with. But the book I'm now writing is actually called My Haunted Experiment. So I'm taking 4 different experiments and methods that have been used, looking at the history of them, and then I'm going to try and conduct a few of them at 3 different locations and see what happens.
Oh, that's brilliant! That's a great idea. I really think it's a brilliant idea. It's just different ways of finding to make contact, to make communication, to make communication easier. It's experimenting and sort of pushing outside the square. You get a lot of, and it's not their fault, newer investigators, they are copying people and, learning that way. But they've got to get to a point where they need to sort of do their own branching out. Yeah. And I always say to even my guys, we're all learning. I don't believe there's any experts in this field. I believe there's people with a lot of experience.
Exactly.
There's experts in photography and audiology and that sort of stuff. But in the paranormal, it's more people with experience than anything. So, go push, create your own roads, create your own boundaries, or break your own boundaries, and move forward. That's the way it has to be. So
yeah, preaching to the converted there, Bill. It's my mantra. I hate it when people say they're a paranormal expert. You can't be an expert in the paranormal. You can't. No. It's not possible, because you don't know whether you're right or wrong. You can only be an expert if you know the actual answer. You can have experience, and I love learning off people like yourselves and all the other guests I get to talk to who have got so much experience.
And we're all learning too.
Yeah, and it was actually, believe it or not, it was when I was sitting at doing that shoot for that newspaper, and I was listening to some of the other amazing ladies who were on that with me, and they were talking about, I can't remember what experiment it was now. I genuinely can't remember. And that's what gave me the idea for the new book, because I was thinking this is an area that I'm really not that knowledgeable on. And I'm one to push myself out of my comfort zone if I get the chance to, because I'm a knowledge junkie, and it's been a very steep learning curve, learning all the sort of backstories to the experiments, like the Philip experiment, the Estes method, the background of EVPs, all that sort of stuff. But it's been very interesting, and it sort of, I agree with you that a lot of people have to learn, new paranormal investigators, and I was one of them. We learn by what we've seen on television.
Yes. We were all there. We were all somewhere at the beginning where we were trying to, find a way to do what we do. When I started, there wasn't any paranormal shows. Mine was books and, writing to people or, anything, like that, and we went from there. And then, even when the paranormal shows did start, I mean, I was still finding stuff there that I didn't realize we could do, and we've expanded from there. Different stuff. We all find our little gems wherever we can. That's the main thing.
Yeah, definitely. I think it's a great way to learn, though. I mean, it's something I was saying to somebody the other day, and she was saying, "Oh, what program can I watch to learn about this?" And I went, "Don't watch a program. Read. There are so many. Now, I'm reading a book on vampires by Peter Underwood at the moment, and I actually disagree with some of the stuff he said, because he's talking about Countess Bathory. Now, I did that show with Beth at the beginning of the year on Bathory, and I did a lot of background reading on her, and I've come up with the conclusion she wasn't a vampire. She wasn't actually a serial killer. She was probably not a very nice person. But
but wasn't as bad as
No, because her murders range from anything from 9 to 650. That's a pretty big gap.
It's quite a gap, and the whole thing is when you're dealing with historic figures, and there's there are different accounts or different records and things like that. It's very hard to to reconcile them and get an real accurate picture in a lot of the cases. So yeah, I can understand why you say that.
Well, what was interesting with her, and this is what don't get me wrong, I love Underwood. I love his books. He was a pioneer. He was, and you can have paranormal pioneers. I do think that you people who sort of push the boundaries.
Definitely. I would say paranormal explorers. So there we go.
Yeah, definitely. But I disagree with some of the stuff he's put, because he's obviously based it on the research that was available at the time. And what I found out with her was a lot of the early books, up until probably almost not only 10 years ago, were based on the myths and the folklore that people had taken to be fact and had run with. Because there's so few documented records of what really did happen. And what I found, the best piece of research I found was actually a university thesis that someone had written. And she actually looked into the background of Hungarian society at that time. Yep. And one of the things she found was it was a Hungarian custom to wear red in mourning. Okay. Not black, red. Okay. Now, one of the things that Bathory was always said is that she wore red because she was bloodthirsty. Well, no. Yeah,
but it was a mourning.
She was in mourning. She changed into red the day after her husband died. There was another. Oh, yes. The things, the way she's meant to have tortured her servants.
Yep.
A lot of those methods of torture were actually legitimate methods of punishing your serving staff back then.
Okay, so
are they torture or are they acceptable punishers? Although we would see them as being abhorrent.
Of course,
it was acceptable back then.
So
I think what I'm trying to say is the more you learn, the more you can question. And
for sure.
I feel quite arrogant questioning someone as eminent as Peter Underwood, but I do think he's got it wrong in his book. However, it was written 60, 70 years ago, whatever it was.
Exactly. You don't have to agree. You don't have to agree with everyone. And that's how we learn. By questioning.
Yeah.
There might be a way that they could say, no, look, and they explain it to you. Where they're if they're alive, where their methods are from or their ideas are from, and you can have a discussion about that. You still don't need to agree, or you might understand them a bit more. But if they're someone who's passed away, and you can't have that discussion. So you go with what they've written or what they've recorded.
Yeah, but that's what I sort of mean. It's learning doesn't just have to be watching a television program. There are so many. I mean, I find now, I don't know about you, but if I do watch a program that's such history as well, history or the paranormal, I will find it interesting, but I might be questioning what they're saying or questioning the results they've found on that piece of equipment.
For sure. And I tend to watch historical stuff now. I tend to get a bit not to watch the paranormal side of things, at the moment, because a lot of them are dramas, and
they're location porn. They're location porn.
Yeah, exactly, and it gets my goat up a little bit. So I sort of step back and watch more historic side of things. So yeah, I find that interesting.
Well, me too. I mean, my husband Wayne and I were watching. There's a series on, I think it's on yesterday, called Abandoned Engineering, and I don't know if you get it in Oz, but it's looking at all these massive engineering projects that have been abandoned, and it's fascinating. And him and I were watching it last night. I mean, it was his birthday yesterday. And so rather than I'll let him know, thank you. Rather than getting like babysitters so we could go out for the night, the two of us are like, I cooked him a steak, which is a big deal for me. It is a big deal for me because I don't eat meat. I don't like meat, and he likes it rare as well. So I've got to cook this piece of literally bloody meat. So that's how I show my love. And we sat and watched this episode of Abandoned Engineering, which I think it was about bridges. And it's fascinating, but we sat there going, oh my God, how boringly middle-aged are we? We're not watching a shoot-'em-up film, or we're not getting babysitters so we can go out and get hammered. We're watching a programme on abandoned engineering.
But, hey, it worked for you guys.
It did. It does. And the fact that one of his birthday presents was 2 tickets to go and see Dan Snow on his history tour that he's doing next month.
Right, yep. That's awesome, mate. That's an awesome night.
Well, I think it will be, but sometimes I think perhaps I should be just out sort of crawling along the floor drunk.
Nah. No? You'll just regret it in the morning. and And that steak sounded awesome, by the way.
Considering that I don't eat the stuff, apparently I'm quite good at cooking it. So
that's an awesome night. The two of us, he had his steak, you had whatever you ate, vegetarian stuff.
Yep. Yep.
And and watch something interesting. You had you enjoyed together. That's the main thing.
We did share a chocolate cheesecake after the steak and my veggie thing. So
that's important. You got to have cheesecake.
Exactly, and a glass or two of Jaeger and Red Bull. That was very nice.
Oh, what? Sorry, a Jaeger and Red Bull.
Jägermeister. Do you know about Jägermeister?
Right. I know.
Yeah, I rather like it.
I really drink, so I'm not much of a beer connoisseur, I'm afraid. So.
Well, I don't really drink. I'm not a drinker because, 2 kids, I can't cope with hangovers, but so often, the odd one or two, just to sort of...
Yeah.
We only had one last night, so it wasn't one shot, and with, Red Bull mixer, but it's a nice way to sort of make... Because he asked me why I hadn't bought him a bottle of red wine, and I was like, dude, you're 39 now, you wouldn't be able to cope because you'd neck the whole thing and you wouldn't be able to get up for work in the morning. Maybe on Saturday night.
That's fair enough. Fair enough. I like the way you think.
Yeah, well, plus he snores like crazy when he's been drinking red wine, and I need my sleep. So there you go. The ever-loving wife. The ever-loving wife. But I do think the history programs, some of the ones you can catch on channels you probably wouldn't ever think of going to, are fascinating.
No, I love the history of places. My big passion is actually the American Civil War. So
So you're looking forward to Richard's new book on it? Yeah, that he's going to be doing another one, I think.
For sure. Oh, I can't wait to get back over there and hopefully hit Gettysburg again. That would be fantastic.
What, the Paracon there? Are you going to go? Do you want to go to the Paracon there?
No. Just the location, mate.
Yeah.
I had such a blast, like the times I was there, and there's so much you see, and and the history of it. You can just feel the 3 days that stain the ground there with energy. That's for me. That sort of place is brilliant.
Yeah, I've never been.
Yeah.
I've been to America quite a few times. I've never been to Gettysburg. My parents went, and they said it's weird to imagine the fighting because people think of fighting as being a big field and everyone just charging at each other. But Gettysburg wasn't like that.
Yeah, no, it was a whole lot of smaller battles. You actually, I was over there with Brad Kling, as you know, and he was showing me in these buildings there's still cannonballs stuck in the walls. Yeah. You can actually see the cannonball sitting in there. Yeah. It's amazing. It's amazing. And only one civilian killed in the whole battle. So
wasn't it that woman who was shot through the door or something when she was making bread or something?
Jenny Wade, that's correct.
That's it. Yeah.
But the fighting. A lot of the fighting took place in the town. They fought through the town. So how did only one person die? That's what amazes me.
That is quite amazing.
Yeah.
But that kind of damage to buildings and things, if you know what you're looking for, you can see it in a lot of places. I was in London for something recently, and I had half an hour to kill, so I went for a little explore, as I do, and I found this wall that had all these sort of markings on it, and it was near Blackfriars Station, I think so. And so I was looking it up, what these marks are from, and it was from an explode. I can't remember if it was a V1 or a V2 rocket from World War II that had exploded and damaged all the wall. And I'm thinking that sort of thing is fascinating. If you look up and actually pay attention to things, the history that's all around you at any point in time.
Exactly.
It's fascinating.
We haven't had, wars on our land, which is, apart from up in Darwin, there was, there was bombings, but that's way up the other end. And, we don't have that as much. We don't have the battles and the shrapnel marks and that sort of thing. The biggest one we had was in town near the major railway station. There was a hat shop, and up until recently, I think it's still there. There was actually a window with a bullet hole in it where two gangsters had a gunfight.
Really?
That's the most. Yeah, that's the most we come up with. And but it's a different. It's different histories, you know what I mean? And to be like yourself, to be able to go to London and actually see, this city that was bombed very badly during the war, or any of the European cities, you know, like across, it's amazing, and then as I was saying, the Civil War, the battlefields, and you can see where there's still bullet holes and cannons. To me that's that's almost like stepping back, in time.
Yeah, I agree.
Exactly.
All you need is a bit of imagination, and you're there.
Oh, 100%, 100%.
No, I agree.
There you go.
I think the one that got me the most was I think it was Kilmainham Jail in Dublin, where the British executed the Easter Uprising, the Irish Easter Uprising. I think it was 1916, and in the prison courtyard, you've still got the bullet holes in the wall where they were firing squad. That was quite sort of, especially when people started to realise. I kind of knew straight away because I'd read up on it at the time.
Of course.
But when people started to realise that's what those holes were, there was quite a few sort of. I think another one I went to it was a church in Corfu, and it was when it was under German occupation during World War II, and somebody I'd read up on it, and I knew that a load of the villagers had been executed at this church. They'd tried to take refuge there, and they'd been executed there.
Terrible.
And
that's terrible.
It is, isn't it? And I knew that's what these markings were, where they'd been lined up against the wall. And when the guide actually told people, because somebody said, why's the wall got all these holes in? Is it some kind of like stone woodworm or something? And she went, no, those are bullet holes. And you could see their faces going, huh?
Why would bullet holes be in a church?
Exactly. But when you start, and you think, once you start thinking about it, there's an awful lot of places where those kind of markings are.
For sure.
And it does take you back. And, if you've got to be made out of stone, if you pardon the pun, to not think what it would have been like to have been standing there in front of that wall.
You have to put yourself in that situation. Exactly. You have to imagine that situation, I mean, even have you been to Alcatraz?
Yes.
When you were in place, and where they had the you can see where the grenades went off during the Battle of Alcatraz. There, you stand there and you think, well, okay, this is a small space. The doors are open now for us, but they were trapped in there.
Yeah.
And the grenades went off, and you can say, well, that would have made a bit of a mess, and those sort of things. You've got to put yourself in that situation and feel for the people, whether they're bad guys or good guys, what they were feeling at the time.
Yeah. Well, actually, I read a book not so long ago by a guy who was in Alcatraz when that happened, and he said that I can't. I'm paraphrasing this because I haven't got it to hand to read the passages, but he's basically saying there was an awful lot of us who we didn't want to die, we didn't want to be shot, and we were kind of like, if we came out with our hands up, they'd shoot us anyway because they were the soldiers, because they got the Marines in, didn't they? In the end,
they did
to stop it.
There was actually only, I think, 6 or 8 of the inmates. The rest, I think, were just stuck in their cells, basically.
Yeah,
and
bystanders.
They were going to be in trouble, But that you look at these things, and you look at these markings, and you can visualize. If you can visualize what's going on, that helps you to connect to the places too.
Yeah.
Which I believe, as paranormal investigators, helps us to connect to the any souls that might be there as well.
Yeah, definitely. No, I agree with you 100%. But I have to find out what this book was called because it was very interesting. And like I say, the guy, I will try and find. I know where it is. It's upstairs on my bookshelf, but I can't go and get it right now. But he described the battle really in a lot of detail because he was quite at the front of it, and he sort of said that because they'd blown the windows out and they were spraying cold water in there, and they were all freezing cold and scared. And I think one of the guys who got killed, he was like, he wasn't even part of it, yet somebody said he was because they heard him yelling. He was actually mentally ill or something like it was very anyone who thinks being in prison you deserve to be there, well, maybe you do, but you don't deserve to be caught up in a riot that you want no part of. Exactly.
It was just madness. I mean, that's Alcatraz is another one I'm really interested in. So it's
you've been there, haven't you? You've been.
I loved it. And it's just these locations. On Saturday, I actually was up. For example, I was up in the old Melbourne jail, which is in our city here.
Yeah.
And you can walk around and you can feel the history.
Yeah.
It's astounding. It
Yeah.
really fascinates me. And because I had some friends over from interstate, and we went there and we went down to the Victoria Market, which was actually Melbourne's second cemetery, but the first cemetery only had 7 bodies in it. So you walk around there, you still actually got 10,000 people buried underneath that market. So
wow,
that's an interesting place. Yes.
I suppose the good thing as well is a lot of your. I mean, somebody, when I did my Q&A live on Saturday, I got asked what my favourite period of history was. And I was saying, and there is a reason I'm saying this, I said it used to be World War II. Then my mother got me to read Birdsong, and I started getting more interested in World War One. And then I started reading up on sort of asylums and sort of hospitals and workhouses and things, and so I started looking more into the Victorian era. But the thing I said I like about those eras, from sort of 1815, 1820 onwards, there's a lot of records. There's the newspapers, there's the census, you've got births, marriages and deaths. It's very easy to research. Now, in Australia, because your history is relatively recent and most people, record keeping would have happened, if you're looking at and I'm not talking about the native Australian history, I'm talking about the settlers, sort of late 1700s onwards, there must be an awful lot of documentation available at records offices and that kind of thing.
There is. There's a great deal. I've got, for example, I've got records like, because I'm doing some research at the moment for something I'm working on, but for example, the names of the first people buried in those cemeteries. Yeah. In both the first and the second cemetery of Melbourne, they were both children at a certain age, and I haven't got the information here with me.
That's all right.
They've got details. The names, the ages. And things like that. Their parents' names, so you can track a lineage. Yeah. And you can see where people went or what happened to them. Yeah. And, there is quite a good record, keeping system here because we are relatively young. But it's like anything. Sometimes you've got to search for it too. If they weren't always kept properly. But, it does happen. For example, I'll give you an example. My mother, she's always celebrated her birthday on the 16th of April. But when we got her birth certificate, says the 16th of March. So, human error, or was that the correct date? And they've always celebrated on a different date. How it's hard to tell now, especially since she's suffering dementia. Yeah. You know what I mean? But when you look at it, little things like that on a bigger scale can happen. And,
definitely.
So we need to always double check what we find or what we can what we look for. So it's all part of what we do, isn't it?
It is. But the thing is, I like about studying from the 1800s onwards is that the records are there, and they're normally by more than one source. Whereas we were talking about Bathory, and there's a reason I'm saying all this. We were talking about Bathory earlier. There's very, very limited records, and those records that are like one source, so they could be very heavily biased. For example, if it had been by the guy who'd supposedly discovered what she was doing, he was working for the king, therefore he was going to bias his records to keep the king happy. There was nobody else going, well, actually, we went in there wasn't bodies dying on the floor. There was a couple of people who were poorly, but that wasn't because, they'd been eaten or bled or whatever. No. But, you only get one side of it, whereas at least with the 1800s, you've got newspaper articles, you've got government reports, you've got even diary entries I found for some people who've they found diaries that had been written by people or minutes of meetings and you can sort of see what's embellishment and what, they've all said this, therefore this must have been the case. And
it's much there's a starting at that point of the records, and it makes it so much easier for us to chase and track down information, which is great. And we're Australia's sort of at the beginning of that, so we're fairly lucky. We haven't got thousands of years or even hundreds where we haven't got records. We've pretty much got records from the start. So
well, the fact is because a lot of your early settlers were they were British, weren't they? They were Victorians. Yeah. Victorians like to keep records.
For sure.
Even like ship manifests and.
Oh, definitely. You can go into like yourselves there. You have the the records office, or the national libraries or the state libraries.
Yep.
They have great records. You can track down amazing things. It's I did my family tree many years ago, and I was able to find a lot of things. That I didn't think I would find.
Yeah.
But that's the way it is. Like for a lot of records, for example, my father comes from Malta. A lot of his their records over there were destroyed, unfortunately, during the war. Not all of them, but a lot of church records and things like that were damaged and destroyed.
Yeah.
Whereas in Australia, that didn't happen.
Yeah.
So it's much easier to track these things down.
Yeah.
So,
I agree. Because that brings me on to the subject we're going to be talking about for the next half an hour, Coal Creek.
Definitely. Yes, Coal Creek.
I couldn't find much about it.
It's
really struggled.
Yeah, it's sort of a hidden gem almost. It's on one of the main roads out of Melbourne. But even then, it's sort of hidden away. Unless there wasn't the main sort of sign there, you wouldn't see it. Basically, what it is, it's a recreated village around an old mine, an old coal mine, Coal Creek, hence. And what they've done is basically moved a lot of old buildings from around the region, being Gippsland or South Gippsland, and put them in there to create this village. So you've got your church, you've got your mechanics hall, you've got your courthouse with a jail, you've got a mason's hall, you've got a school, you've got a bunch of little shops, and a few cottages and houses, plus some outer buildings as well. There's an old steam train with carriages that's placed there as well.
Yeah.
And so there's all these different buildings to form this village or this area.
Yeah.
And majority of them are old buildings that have been brought in. Some of the shops have been built there from scratch. They're not moved in from anywhere. But the majority of the buildings are historic and have significance from around the area. Excuse me for the hiccups. I'm sorry.
It's all right. It's all right. I'm supping on a very large cup of coffee while we talk because it's only my third coffee of the day. I need at least 5 to get functioning.
You need to step it up.
I know, I do. I need to put it in intravenously soon. But we've got a few places like that in the UK that are sort of heritage villages and stuff.
Yes.
So they're recreated original buildings that have been moved to recreate what it would have looked like in the time. And
exactly.
And I know from past conversations we've had, Bill, we've talked a lot about the fact that Ararat was a gold mining sort of, that's what made its money. Never realised that black gold was a big thing in Australia as well. Black gold being black coal. But there's actually 2 types of coal. So I was reading, but this is how deep I was going. I was looking at geologist reports on the different types of coal they could get from Australia. Yeah, right. That's my life. That's how exciting my life is. Because I read one thing, why is it known as black coal? So I had to look into that because I had a question on it. I still don't really understand the geological makeup of brown coal or black coal, other than brown coal seems to have more of a woody element, whereas black coal is more is better quality. That's kind of what I took from it, my sort of non-scientific understanding. But it was actually the native Australians, the Aborigines, that called it black gold. Because of how amazing. Apparently so. They had a word for it. I can't pronounce it. I'm not even going to try. But they called it black gold. But
well, you told me something.
Pardon?
I didn't know that.
Apparently so. I might be wrong, but I did find it in 2 or 3 different sources.
No, I've never come across that. That's all. Cool.
And let's face it, the native Australians, they knew their stuff, didn't they? They knew how to work the land.
They did. It's there's actually a couple of mining areas around that I've done investigations at. And they're interesting places. In this mine here, there was actually a cave in. There was actually a death there as well. So you've got a lot of different things.
Was that Thomas Baker in 1907?
You have done your research.
It was, wasn't it? Are you
really
impressed? Well. Are you impressed? I knew that.
I know you. I know you do your research.
I wanted to actually. I did actually. Right, I'm jumping around a bit now, but yeah, one of the bits I did was I looked at mining accidents in Australia from 1860 1960 to I think about 1930 or 1940.
Yep.
And I found a few accidents in that were classed as South, I can't even say it, Gippsland mines. Gippsland, thank you. But I only found one that actually said the mine was Coal Creek. So I figured that was Coal Creek as in the mine we're talking about.
Only one death, yeah. Yep.
I found a few accidents where people got injured, but they didn't tell but there was only one death, and this was 1907 Thomas Baker, which I found quite amazing that there were less. There weren't more deaths, because when I look at mining history in this country, most big mines, especially from the late 1800s to the early 1900s, you'd have 10 times that at least.
Oh, for sure. And I think I'm not sure why that is. I mean, possibly you guys might have been working on a bigger scale there. This was quite a big mine, but not the hugest or the biggest. But yeah, it is. I think it's. I mean, just in general, in that there wasn't the occult and safety or anything like that. It's pretty amazing that more people didn't die. That's exactly the case.
I was quite shocked. I was shocked. I actually double checked because I was so surprised. I mean, there was a lot of deaths at other mines, but that was including gold mines and silver mines and various other things. And there was an awful lot of Chinese names as deaths and injuries, which didn't surprise me, knowing the history that we've talked about before, and we talked about Ararat and all of those places.
They were expendable, is the way they. I think they thought they were just just labour. They didn't. That's the way people thought then. It was pretty terrible. Pretty horrible.
To be honest, I think there's certain parts of the world that still think like that about certain nationalities now, isn't it?
I imagine there is. What can you do? Unfortunately, human nature. There's some people that that don't see the value in life. You know what I mean? And they just see them as a commodity, which is horrible, which is just terrible. Yeah.
But am I right in thinking that Coal Creek, the restored village, is actually next to a place called Corumburra?
Corumburra, yep.
I love that word, Corumburra. I love it.
And we've got Leongatha, which is just down the road a bit more.
Corumburra.
Corumburra. So Corumburra is the area, the town there. And it's a little town. It's a really nice town. Actually, you have a really great pub there to do a good steak. I know that wouldn't interest you, but tell hubby.
Husband, I don't know if it'd do as good as I cooked it, but
A matter of fact, I was down there. I was actually there yesterday. As you know, I had to go down to Amanda's specialist there, and on the way back, we stop off at the pub there, and we have some lunch. And it's a great pub. But Corumburra, Corumburra's a nice little town. It's a good little town, and they very friendly. And Coal Creek sits just on the outskirts of that. So
it's got a big association with Coal Creek and the mines and.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, the Coal Creek's been there since they actually started putting buildings there in 1971, but it was opened in 1974. So that's quite a few years, since it was created. But all these buildings they're amazing. They're just they're kept really well. They're maintained really to spec basically, and there's a history for each of them. You can sort of track history as well. Where they come from. Yeah, which is great.
But when you've done sort of research into Corumburra and Coal Creek, have you discovered anything to do with the father of Corumburra?
The father of Corumburra?
Yeah.
I haven't done a lot of research into Corumburra itself. It's more to do with Coal Creek. When you're limited time, you sort of focus on what you really need to. With me at the moment, it's more to do with I focus on the sort of the Corumburra. Coal Creek itself rather than Corumburra as a whole. So, that's where
I found there's quite an amazing person associated with Corumburra.
Yep.
I think he's amazing.
Right. What's his name?
Antonio Radovic.
That name was very familiar.
Well, he is actually seen to be the father of Corumburra. He is meant to have come to Australia in 1851 from Croatia, and rather than get into mining, which he did a bit of coal mining, a bit of gold mining, I think maybe it was, he decided to kind of build up Corumburra and he built the hotel. Well, he started working in one of the hotels, and then built his own hotel in 1888, which is still there, I believe, the Cornborough Hotel. He also built and set up the National Bank, that's still there, in 1892. He died in 1903, leaving 5 children, and he left an estate of £27,744. Now, that was the interesting thing. When I was finding the newspaper reports, they do put it in pounds, not dollars.
Yes. Well,
when did you start using dollars in
I think 1966.
Oh, right, okay.
Yeah, we were basically English money up until pounds, and same as you guys.
I've learned something. I didn't know that.
Yeah, up until 1966. It was I was born in 1967, so I remember that well. Sort of when I've been told, sort of thing. It's the year before. But like I said, I mean, I haven't studied a lot on the history of Cornborough. It's a beautiful place, but with the amount of things I have going on, I sort of focus on what I have to. You know what I mean? So yeah. But
you know what it's like when you're doing your research. You find a little hole and you follow it, and you start going, "This is very interesting."
Down the wormhole. I mean, look, that's something I'd love to get a bit more on our surrounding areas a bit more, but with all of the sites, like Ararat from Aradale. Bundoora I know a fair bit of because I grew up around the Bundoora area, which is where we have another tour going.
That's our next show that we're doing, Bill.
That's our next show, and that's an interesting one too. But this one here, I mean, the buildings have been brought in all have their own energy. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
They have their history, and we've actually, funny enough, we've actually picked up a lot of things. And the gentleman that died, Thomas Baker there.
Thomas.
Yep, we've actually picked up on him.
Oh,
we've actually
wow.
we've had him through on some of a couple of occasions, and so the name.
Okay, sorry about that little break just then. You still there, Bill?
Yeah, I'm here.
Oh, sorry, it just started bleeping at me again. We just had a few Skype internet problems then. The internet in Australia decided that they didn't want Bill talking to us here in the UK, and it just crashed on him. So, sorry about what will sound a bit disjointed, these two bits knitting together. But we were talking about Thomas Baker, who died in 1907, and you say you've
Well, we've had the name come through on a couple of devices. We have a GD box and those sort of things. So we've had the name actually pop up, and you do your research, you have your research, you know your history, so you get excited when you hear a name that actually matches the location you're at. So But
so how close are you to the actual shaft that he was in?
We're at probably maybe 100 metres, if that.
Oh, wow.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, not far. We're actually, I think, if I recall, and it was quite a while ago. We were actually in the mechanics hall, which is along the same sort of line. If you look at the property, sort of imagine it's a rectangle. It's not, but it's
Yeah.
But if you down one side, sort of that's where the mechanics hall is, and then you keep going and you actually hit the mine. So it's not that far. It's pretty close. But I find we each building in that place has its own energies and own spirits. I was talking about the lady who was in the church, and now the church is located there. People still feel and see this lady in the back of the church.
Yeah.
We actually did some filming there for a guy I know up in Sydney. He has a production company. They had some investigators come down, and what we decided to do was send the females all into this church. Right. Now, some of the females that he brought with him were not Christian; they were pagan.
Yeah.
So they actually went up on the pulpit there and started saying pagan prayers.
Right.
Now, all the pews in this church started actually shaking. So that was really interesting. And my wife's in there as well, Amanda.
Yeah.
And she's very level-headed with this. We've been doing this a long time, as you know. And they're all starting to get a little bit shaken. And she said to them, "Look, this is what you're here for. Chill out, let it happen." And it settled down. And then the cameraman got grabbed on the leg. And, pretty much it was all over. So it was bad. So there's a lot of energy in these buildings. The Masonic Hall, for example, I had some investigators there, and psychic, and the psychic was picking up on an angry man
Yeah.
in there who apparently his daughter had run off with someone, and he was very angry. And there was another investigator with him, and this guy was 6'4", and he went falling backwards, sort of stumbling backwards. He said, "What happened?" And he said, "Something hit me." And on his belly, there's a fist, like, red where you would get hit, like a fist mark on his belly where he got hit. So that sort of thing, it's a lot of energy in these places. Some of it's not bad, some of it's good, and some of it's troubled, some of it's not. It's amazing what you get. Yeah.
So when Thomas's name came through, did it come through with any other information?
No, it was just a name. It was just a name that, sometimes you get, it might not have even been him, but it might have been, something, or somehow picked up on, on that name. I'm not sure how that, why it would only be the name, but it does happen, as you know yourself. Sometimes you get a lot of information, sometimes you get a little bit. Yep. So we go with what we got.
Well, the fascinating thing about Coal Creek, and some of the information I was, apart from my mining facts that I get, the Thomas Baker fact, that I'm quite glad that I shocked you that I knew that name. It's always good when the plan comes together. Is the amount of artefacts, that genuine antique artefacts. I mean, I found a website that lists like thousands of the artifacts that are there and sort of what they are and maybe where they discovered them and things. And you have got things like pickaxes and nails and broken glasses and medicine bottles and...
For sure.
There must be, as you say, so much energy attached to a lot of these things.
The energy is astounding there. They have a doctor's surgery there, and you walk in and there's the old doctor's, as you said, bottles. There's the old medicine bottles and things in there from that era, like over 100, 150 years ago. It's amazing, and furniture. As I said, these things have been brought into the area, but people say, "Oh, how can they be? They've been brought here." Well, these things are from the area, from the local area, and they have their own energy attached to them. Just because they move, that energy doesn't leave them. Yeah. It's attached to the building, so when the building goes, the energy goes with it. And in the schoolhouse, sometimes we'll pick up on children, and we'll have some children things coming through. The courthouse, I believe there's a magistrate in there, and usually when I start talking about whiskey, he gets a little bit excited, and you start getting things happening and things like that. He didn't mind a wee dram, you know what I mean? So
have you taken him a bottle though to see if you can use that as a trigger?
We haven't, but we've discussed it.
You should.
But I think we'd be doing that on one of our private ones where we haven't got guests there, simply because I'm a little bit funny about the alcohol side of things, and people have the wrong idea. But you're right, trigger objects. We have we've had some weird things, like for example, we were doing some filming there, and a spider actually dropped from the roof. Come down, not a spider, and we get some pretty big spiders. Well,
Aussie spiders, yep.
Aussie spiders. Well, this spider hit the table and disappeared. So, that was interesting. We sort of all looked at each other and thought, what the hell's gone on? What?
A ghost spider?
It was one of the... my thoughts were more that it was probably something didn't want us in the building, trying to scare us off. Most people are scared of spiders, so possibly something like that. That was one idea I had. I'm not saying it's the right idea, but it was one idea.
Actually, just being serious, why couldn't a spider be a ghost? If you could, and it's a living being at the end of the day, isn't it? I mean, this is one of the conversations I've had with quite a few people. They're like, it was actually something that Paul Ross said when I was on his show at the beginning of the year. Why don't we get ghost dinosaurs? And I was like, it's a good point. And he goes, no, maybe one there right back next to you, but you just don't realise it. And I was thinking, he's got a point, because he was kind of being a bit sort of sarcastic, but he has got a point that people talk about, human spirits and human residual hauntings. Why don't and we do hear about, like, the horse galloping through, the headless horseman, and
for sure.
Yeah.
I was going to say, we have pets. I mean, Amanda had a dog before she met me. Unfortunately, eventually had to get put down. She had a brain tumour. She used to come and jump on our bed after she passed. We'd feel it on the bed. you know, and that's so they do. Animal spirits do. I mean, I was in a fort in the States there, and I was on my own, and I heard a horse neighing and running past me. There was no horse there, you know. So you know, is it residual there maybe? But you know, this dog used to come and jump on our bed. You know, so it sounds really stupid. You know, sometimes you know people will think you're losing your mind, but you know, in reality, you know, it's a living thing.
Yeah.
You know, and
I think a spider probably would more be residual than conscious sort of spirit trying to contact, because I don't think spiders have intelligence in that respect. But I think go pets, spider.
For sure. It was something strange that had happened. You know, it's one story I like because it's so unusual. You know what I mean? And it's way out there, sort of thing. And you know, the thing is, I believe pets and animals have spirits. So you know, that's they can come back. I'm sure.
Yeah. I think so. Yeah. You know, Bill, when you go into certain places, they like to the entities there seem to latch onto certain types of equipment that you can take in with you. Some places they seem to function better if you're trying to use a REM pod to communicate. Some they function better when you use a spirit box. Yes. Does Coal Creek have certain gadgets you know you're nearly always going to get a reaction from?
For sure. I mean, I know we do a couple of spiritualist exercises as well, which I've learnt off some friends over there in the UK. They always work really well in, for example, the mechanics hall. I always get that really good interaction there. You know, the schoolhouse works very well with the Ovilus. The church is the GD box, or the portal is another, quite similar to a portal. Works very well in the church. And you know, we change things up a bit, and we try different things. We do some EVP bursts in different areas and play them back for the people to hear, you know, so we can hear whether we catch anything. The train is pretty good for that, and you know, so you do get sort of areas where you're right, where equipment does seem to function better or get more interaction. Yeah.
So what was the equipment that Thomas's name came up on?
If I believe it was the GD box.
Oh, right, okay.
The portal. Yeah.
I mean, I guess when you're doing a public investigation, you've got to give them the experience of as many different sorts of things as possible. But if you were doing a private, a private investigation, or you and other like-minded investigators,
exactly,
would you use, you know, those bits? Say, look, we know when we go in the church, this is the best piece of equipment to use. We'll use some others, but I think this is the one we're going to get a reaction from.
Exactly. With the public, what we do is we try to our tours are sort of, you know, we try to educate them as well as give them, you know, the entertainment side of things.
Yeah.
We do a proper investigation. We do no theatrics or anything like that. So the people know that from the start. And as I said to them, you know, spirits aren't trained puppies. They're not going to jump on command and things like that. So you might not get anything. So
a bit like children.
Yeah, exactly. Exactly like children. So really the fact is, you know, definitely use, you know, the way we do things on a tour is similar to what we would do on an investigation in a more condensed version.
Yeah.
And to keep the people interactive and interacting with the experience. For us, as you know, as an investigator yourself, you know, you could go into a building and I'll turn on a recorder and I'll sit in the room in a building quiet for, you know, an hour and a half if I have to, you know, just let it run. You know what I mean? And try to see what I can hear. You know, later on, you know, see what I can capture. So I would use some of the equipment that I know works well in different places, but I would if it's not sort of kicking in straight away or, you know, with a reasonable amount of time, I will try to build the energy myself.
Yeah.
Or I will try some other things. You know, you have to be patient, but you also have to be innovative, if it makes sense.
Yes. So
you don't want to just say, well, you know, I know this works here well, so I'm just going to stick with it, and, you know, it's dead silence on that portal for, you know, an hour and a half. If it's not starting to get some sort of interaction after, say, half an hour or so, you know, you need to step it up and you need to change things to try to get the interaction. Yeah.
You've got this site that's, like, I don't know, is it about 60 or 70 acres of buildings or something? It's quite a large site.
It's a large site. It's a large site, yes. Yes.
Have you got a favourite part of it?
Well, look, I love the church. The church is my favourite. I actually love going there during the day. I actually take my kids there sometimes during the day because you can just wander around and, have a bit of a look, and they can see it. You can see it during the day. It's a different environment. But the church is pretty my favourite. I tend to get quite a bit, of contact there and that sort of thing. But look, all of it's good. The courthouse I really like. There is a mine manager's cottage there. Well, that's what they call it. It was actually, if I remember, the Currumborough Land Office at one stage.
Okay.
And that's it's a building with with a central corridor with rooms off it, as it would have been in the old days. But you can't go into the rooms; they're actually sealed with perspex glass.
All right.
But you hallway. But if you go and stand in there, on your own, or with someone else or whatever, and you can feel that there's stuff in there, and you'll get reactions. You can get the contact there, that's another favourite of mine.
Okay.
And the other one there's a excuse me. There's what is it? It's a cafe now, but it was originally a pub. And that's an interesting place as well. So you get quite a bit of action there as well. We've had some interesting conversations, and you experiment with different things. We've used everything from pendulums to the electronics, and you get different sorts of contact.
Yeah. If you could conduct any experiment then at Coal Creek, what you can conduct one. What would your favourite? What would your goal experiment to conduct there be?
One I haven't done there. I've done it at the Arrowdale Asylum. Was the Gansfeld experiment. It was a sensory deprivation experiment.
Yep.
And with some amazing results. And not just with I was the main one under, but with people standing around, they were getting affected as well.
Yeah.
I would do that probably in the church or possibly the Masons Lodge, somewhere along those lines, where there's quite a bit of energy.
Yeah.
Even the pub. Yeah. That would be interesting. It's sort of a blind experiment, as you know.
Yes.
So you're not getting affected by external. It's it's what's internal.
Yeah.
And we're experienced in what we do, so it's not something that you're going to be a flight of fancy most of the time.
Yeah. I'm looking forward to. I'm going to have a go at Estes, which is kind of a development of the Gansfield, but using the SB7 box.
Yep.
I've got plans to do that. A version of that at an old
It's the
RAF base.
The sort of the blind ghost box sessions.
Yeah, well, I won't be blind. I'll just have the headphones in, but I won't be in the same place as the person asking the questions, asking to give me the answers. So I won't know when they're asking. I've got it all planned. It's all planned. We do the same. What we do is we have a spirit box, and we have noise cancelling headphones, but we blindfold the person so they can't see when the people are talking. But we do make sure, we sort of we test that they can't hear us definitely. Yeah. But, we blindfold them so they can't see even as people talking and sort of, unconsciously read lips or whatever, Oh, you see, I don't want to be blindfolded, so I'm going to make sure I'm in one part and I can't. The person's about 50 metres away, so I can't actually see them asking the questions. Because the thought of being blindfolded and the headphones on would make me feel a bit claustrophobic.
Yeah, it takes a special kind of weird to do that.
Yeah, no. I don't think I could be blindfolded and the headphones on. I want to be able to see so that I can write down the answers, if nothing else.
For sure, well, that's right.
But yeah, so that would be an interesting one. That would be an interesting, and you're going to have to do the whiskey experiment as well in the courthouse.
Oh, we've done that in the jails, and we've done cigarettes and different sorts of things. We have all these we've done so many different types of objects or different types of things, recreations to try to get contact in different places. Even there, in the train, we get. I tend to be get a lot of action with a conductor that's on there.
Yeah. And
I'll ask him to come and collect their tickets, and sometimes you will hear a clicking sound.
Wow.
Now, the ticket clickers, the old ones.
Yeah.
And my dad actually had one of them because he used to work at the soccer sometimes, and he'd be clicking people's tickets to go in, and so I know the sound. And a few times we've actually heard that when we've asked him to come and click tickets. So it's that sort of thing. There is also a clock that you hear ticking in the train, and there's no clock in there that's working. So it's
awesome. Sounds amazing. It does sound an amazing place. I'm just stunned that there's only been one death reported in that mine. I find that I still find that absolutely stunning.
Yeah, it is amazing. But there's other deaths around the area that you're sort of taking, where people have passed away and things like that.
But from a historical mining, sort of looking at mining history perspective, I find it astounding.
Definitely. No, I agree with you 100%.
Yeah.
It's pretty amazing.
Cool.
They're pretty lucky, really.
Cool. Well, thank you ever so much, Bill. I hope I haven't kept you up too late. I think next time we'll have a chat about Bandora then, because that's another cool word. Bandora. I love all these Australian names. They make me chuckle and make me smile.
Most of them, those ones are Aboriginal names. So they are strange, but Bandura is a great place too. That has a good history, and the area around because we investigated the it's called Bandura Park Farm, which is what's used to be called Cooper's Settlement. But that whole area there is interesting. We have everything from UFOs to a lunatic asylum across the road, to a sighting not that long ago of what the Aboriginals called, I can't remember his Aboriginal name, but it was a crocodile man, a body with a crocodile head.
We will talk about this later in the year, I reckon, Bill.
Yes, so we can discuss that.
Definitely. Well, before I go, we were talking about your Worlds Beyond TV thing. I hear you're encroaching on my turf now as well.
With the podcast.
The podcast.
I know, we're like the mafia, we're moving in.
You copycats! I was letting you have the television side. Now you're trying to steal my podcast queen hat.
Well, we'd never be as good as you, young people.
Oh, bless you. So you're going to be asking me to be a guest on your show then, turn the tables?
Hey, don't worry, I've been thinking about that too. So that would be good. And we have the Skype all set up, so we do. We have the power. I'm moving. So we're going to be doing some interviews with hopefully people there in the UK, and I've got a few that I'm lining up in the US. So it'd be cool.
Mr. Eastep would be up for an interview as well.
I know. I'd like to get him on and bug the hell out of him.
Oh, he loves it. He loves being bugged. He loves it.
He's a good guy. He's a really good guy.
He is a very good guy, and I have actually read his new book, The Haunted Healthcare, and I knew which story was Miss Amanda's.
I've got it right here in front of me, actually. I've got it off on my bookshelf. I've just actually just put it up here. He sent it to us a week or two ago, and I've had it sitting on my desk, sort of glancing at it, but I haven't had a chance to read it properly. But I put it on the bookshelf so it doesn't get damaged. So,
Good. Well,
and I'm waiting for your one now to go up on the bookshelf.
You will get a copy of my one when I finally get it back from my editors. I promise. I promise. I was going to hand deliver it, obviously, later this year, but as the plans have had to change, you might have to make do in the post.
We will get that organised one way or the other. I'm sure.
We will. Anyway, thank you so much for your time.
No worries,
morning, tonight, whichever way you want to look at it, Bill. If anyone wants to get in touch with Bill and sort of talk to this Australian guru of the paranormal, you can go through your Facebook page, Australian Paranormal Society.
Australian Paranormal Society.
Yeah.
And there's phone numbers and emails and message on there. You can get in contact with us. Feel free to call us, ask questions. One of my team or myself will get back to you. And anything you need to know about Australia or anything we've spoken about or anything you're thinking of, let us.
Awesome.
We love to hear from people. So.
Thank you. And I must admit, I'm in a good mood right now, and I'm so proud to be able to call you one of my friends, Bill.
Oh, sister, you're part of our para family, mate. So anything for yourself, you know that.
Thank you, my love. Thank you. Well, on that note, I'm going to let Bill go because he's got to be up ridiculously early because those Aussies are hard and they start at ridiculous times in the morning. So I'm going to let Bill go. Don't forget we've got shows on 6 nights of the week, and you can catch up on all of them on Spreaker and on YouTube, which I'm sure you will have gone over and clicked, liked, shared, and subscribe. Next week, another show next week. As always, we'll be talking about the Myrtles Plantation. Yes, over there in Louisiana, I believe. I'm looking forward to that one as well. I've got some great shows coming up for you over the rest of this year. I'm so excited about them all. But on that note, have a great evening, everybody. Sleep tight, and don't worry too much about things that go bump in the night.
Thank you for listening. Don't forget to join us for more shows throughout the week. Find us on Facebook, Twitter, and the World Wide Web to keep up to date with all the shows right here on Parasearch Radio.